Hello everybody, and thanks for checking out my video. Today we are going to be replacing a subframe on a 2006 Chrysler Pacifica, and I'm going to show you here why we're doing this. As you can see here, this is the vehicle. 3.5 liter engine, 2-wheel drive, and the subframe is rotting on it. It's a very common problem with these Pacificas to have the subframe rot, and it's a safety issue also, and we'll see why. But I already know it's rotting. I already have a subframe for it. I'm going to put it in because I know that there are not a lot of videos on YouTube about how to put them in. I've seen a few on how to repair them. With something structural like this, I always like to just go ahead and replace it. And it actually isn't as difficult as most people would think. It does require a few special tools to do it. I have at least 4 or 5 jack stands that I'm going to need to use in order to get the subframe out. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the front wheels and put the front end on jack stands. As you can see, I have the wheels off of the Pacifica. I have it up on jack stands. Now I know that you guys that are familiar with these cradle rot problems know what's going on, so I'm going to show you here, or at least try to show you. Right here we're on the passenger side. That's where the control arm bolts in there, but you see just below the control arm, you see where that's rotting? Right there, and a little bit on top there too. You can't see a whole lot from the side, but we'll get underneath. There's your underneath picture. You see the problem right there? This beam that goes across supports the back of the engine, and you get all this rotting going on right here. So you don't even have metal attaching the beam that's supposed to hold up the engine. That's why it's a safety issue. And it's not just this side, it's that side that's got it too. I don't know if you can see that or not, but obviously it's a safety concern. You don't want to have your engine drop out on you while you're trying to drive down the interstate. I got an oil leak down here too, which I'm going to fix also, but I just wanted to give you an idea of why we're replacing the subframe. So the next step in the process is I'm going to remove the control arms on both sides. If I need to unlock the wheel and move it, I can, to access that nut there. And then you got 2 back here. I'm going to get these control arms out of the way. We're on the driver's side, and I now have the lower control arm out. As you can see, no lower control arm there. The other steps, particularly for this side, you have a 10mm bolt there holding your brake line. You got a little brake line clippy right there. And then you're also going to have to undo the power steering rack, which more than likely you'll have to go underneath for. That sway bar bushing, and right there's a hard to get to bolt down there, and another one on the other side. There's a 10 on this side. But once you get all this stuff undone, now I would not undo your rack until both your control arms are out. I haven't done that as of yet. Okay, now I'm over on the passenger side, and now you can see I got the no control arm there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to release these 2 little body screws. They're holding this plastic on so I can see everything that's going on. I know I can't record and do this at the same time, so just bear with me. And it might break on you, which is fine. I'm sure I got spare body clips somewhere in the house. Out of the way, and I'll show you. There's really nothing going up in there that needs to be disconnected or replaced. Again, you have a 10 right there, another 10 right there for the power steering lines, some flippies for the brake lines, And then of course you can see the rack bolt, and then you can see the sway bar link, or the sway bar right there. So once you get it off, it's just essentially getting the side stuff off, and then we'll start working on the stuff here in the middle, the rack, the sway bar, and then of course the trickier part, which is holding the engine up while you're working on the subframe bolts. So the next thing that I would probably go ahead and unbolt is this rack. Bolt. There's a bolt right there, kind of where my finger is. Another bolt right here. Both bolts have to come out. And when you do the rack, what I would do is I would take this side, the passenger side rack, and I would take a bungee cord and wrap it around that exhaust up there. And the reason I would do that is because when this cradle comes down, the rack's coming down with it. Even though you can take out the rack with the cradle, it's a lot more work, considering that steering gear is held in there with a roll pin. So you got that, and you'd have to take these tie rods out. Too much work for me. I'd rather just leave it in there and do my thing. So as you see, I got the 2 rack bolts out, and I have the rack hanging on the passenger side by the exhaust. You have to do that because it'll come down if you don't, and then you could possibly rupture one of these power steering lines over here, which you definitely don't want to do. So the next task is, now that I can move the rack around, is to get the sway bar out of here. Luckily, you may not even have to do as much work with the sway bar, because as you see, they're slotted. So if you just loosen it and then push it forward, you might actually be able to get it out. There are 2 bolts after the middle of the sway bar. You got that front bolt there and that bolt there. They're both motor mount bolts. You have to get those out of the way, and then I would just do it at this stage. And then after this, then we'll put our cross member up top to hold the powertrain in place, and then we'll get these final 4 bolts. We'll get some more jack stands underneath this. Okay guys, well, I just got done doing those 2 bolts beneath it. I went ahead and installed it's called an engine support bracket. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, there are no good places to support the engine between the battery and the thing. I went ahead and just wrapped it around the exhaust pipe, and if I damage it, I damage it. I mean, you know, there's really no other ifs, ands, or hows about how to go about doing this. So now that I got the powertrain lifted up, I'm ready to head underneath, and all that's left is those 4 bolts. And as you can see, I have jack stands kind of trained, ready to grab these bolts. So I'm going to use my jack to kind of help me stabilize it. But other than that, yeah, it's ready to come down. So, and I present to you the subframe. There you go. We got it out. It's just hanging right there. And now that it's out in the open, now I can actually show you what this thing was doing. And yeah, this is dangerous, dude. Yeah, if you got a Pacifica that's doing this, you need to get it fixed, because this is easily an accident waiting to happen. And then you can see the other side too. It's just, you know, nothing really holding up the engine. So I'm glad we're getting this done. But essentially I got it out with 3 jack stands. I just kind of took turns on either side, driver, passenger, back, forward. I ended up having to pull the rear jack stands first to get it out, and then the front jack stands to get it going. But well, once it's down, and you know, once it's down, it's down, and you can see all the rack still hanging there, the sway bar, the brake lines, all that stuff is still hanging there. And look down even further. And I guess what makes it super easy is that you don't have to really do anything with the exhaust to get it going. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together, obviously with a new subframe. So that's how it's done. That's how you replace the subframe on a Pacifica. Installation is essentially reverse order of removal. You put the sway bar, the rack back together, put all the brake lines where they're supposed to go, put the control arms on. If you plan on doing this in your driveway like me, just plan for about a whole afternoon and just plan to be sore in the morning, because there's a lot of crawling to do. Now, one more final step that I did. It's up to you whether you do it or not. I went ahead and I bought some of this Flex Seal lubricating rubber sealing coating, and this essentially is supposed to stop any future water intrusion into the subframe or any of the subframe components. It'll essentially stop this from happening. So, or at least it'll try to help it. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.